guest. Coach Mick. I'm the Director of Experiential Learning here at the USTA National Campus in Orlando. And sitting with me is a good colleague and friend of mine, Jorge Capestany, who we've had a few times here at the campus doing some live streams, and we've been on court.
Yep.
But today we're going to do something a little bit different. You know, we're going to talk a little bit about actually what your students can be doing out of class, all right, rather than in class, or how we can get them to play more than one time a week. So can you explain that a little bit for me, Jorge?
Yeah, so basically when Chris and I were talking about one of the problems that we hope to solve, I could tell them, you know, I have one live because I actually still do this. I manage a club, I teach tennis still. And the problem that we identified at my club, it's really universal, it's not just my club, was we had a lot of our youngest players, I'm talking the 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, they were basically playing tennis one time a week. And if I took a closer look at that group of players, it's very difficult to get very good at anything if you're doing it for just 1 hour a week.
Right.
And if you were a 5 and 6-year-old, you were probably only coming for 45 minutes a week. So that was the problem, okay? How could I, Coach Jorge Capestany at my club in Holland, Michigan, get my younger players playing more frequently so they could feel like they're a tennis player and move them from being a tennis trier to a tennis player? So this problem is not unique to me. I'm sure that if you are at a club, you have the similar thing. It's rampant that a lot of 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, they do their class, they kind of take their lesson, and then that's it. You don't see them again until the next week. So I'm going to tell you, you know, a story that was true to my heart. It's a true story because I have a daughter now. She's 24. But when she was young, and if you follow me, you know that I'm a teaching professional, but so is my wife. My wife is a full-time teaching pro. And we had this child way back when she was younger, and we wanted her to be active, but we didn't want to force tennis onto her just because mom and dad played tennis. So we decided to do what I refer to as a sports buffet. And every parent is basically doing that. I put my daughter Carly, and I put her into tennis. I had her try tennis. I had her try swimming, karate, volleyball, t-ball. We had her try all kinds of different sports. And our goal was just to see what she liked the most. And that was where we're going to be headed. So I call that the sports buffet. A lot of American families are doing that with their young kids. As a matter of fact, if you are a 5, 6, or 7-year-old in my club, or 8-year-old, I just assume that you're on your sports buffet journey, and you're comparing me, Coach Jorge at tennis, to your soccer coach, and to your t-ball coach, and to your volleyball coach. And guess what? I want to win. You know, I want that child to pick tennis for a lifetime sport, not one of the other ones. So that was our dilemma. So the other thing that tennis has is a big strike against it, is that our sport is it's very easy to just do once a week, right? So let me tell you a personal story. When I had my own daughter doing this little tennis, you know, the sports buffet, I signed her up for t-ball. And as soon as I signed her up for t-ball, I got a sheet of paper. And on the sheet of paper were 2 things: when we practice and when she would play her games. Just right before we even started.
The coach will give you that. I mean,
it was just an assumption that it was going to be 2 days a week. And then when I put her in swimming, I got a sheet, and that sheet says, here's when we practice, here's when the meets are. Put her in volleyball, here's when we practice, here's where the games are. So you see the trend. However, if you are a typical 7-year-old going into a club in America, they will tell you, here's when you practice. We have our lessons on Tuesday night at 6 and also Saturday at 9, and that's it. So the problem is that it's become an expectation in our sport that, like, well, it's just one time a week. And so I dug a little deeper because I want to change that paradigm. And the problem is that with all those other sports, they get 2 days a week and they're the same price, you know, so you could do, let's say soccer, you get your soccer schedule. It's not more for the game. It's just kind of one price. And tennis is not. So like at my club, if I have the kid come on the Tuesday class, that's great. But if they want to do a second day, the only option was to do the Saturday class, and that costs more money. So that's one unique issue that we have in tennis.
It's tricky too, because when you're 10 and under, I ran a summer sports academy, I called it. We played tennis every day, but then we did another sport after that, whether it was basketball, baseball, soccer, lacrosse, just because at that age, kids need to be playing all the sports. And so to gain those skills, like when we were young, we played, Army and climb trees and,
Right.
and out and doing stuff in the backyard. Now we're on our tablets a lot more as
Yeah.
children. So, that's the tough part, is competing against all those other ones. Now, can I
Yeah.
say one thing before we go any further? Now, if you look at the bottom of your screen here, you'll see that there's a Q&A button. And we want you to ask some questions live so we can answer them live. So if you click on the Q&A button, you can actually type in a question, and then you'll see when we're answering that question. And we'd love to take your questions. Also, you'll see that there's a hand right there. So if you hit the hand, it'll give you a little hand raise, and you can actually ask your question audibly. And we'll probably just do the audible tonight, but we can also put you on video and get your camera there if you want. But I think we'll just do an audio question. But we want to experiment with that anyway, because that's kind of my job. So please ask us some questions. We'll be happy to answer them. You can cut us off at any time, and Jorge and I will definitely love to answer.
Okay, so back to my problem, which I think is probably playing out in clubs all over the country, for sure in the US. I wanted to get these kids playing a second time a week so that tennis had at least a chance to be their favorite sport. We talked about the fact that it was going to cost more, where these other sports, it didn't cost more. So I started putting in some policies at my club that were family friendly, because this is one of the things we wanted at my club. We have a thing called the walk-on pass. So the walk-on pass is our policy of giving a child a walk-on pass. It's only available to juniors. But here's how you qualify. You have to be a junior member, which at my club is very inexpensive. And then you also have to be enrolled in a clinic. Got to be in any one of our clinics. Those two things together give you a junior walk-on pass at the DeWitt Tennis Center where I work. Now, what does that mean? That means that you can book a court 24 hours in advance, and that court's free. So with our older kids, that junior walk-on is a pretty popular thing, and it gets utilized quite a bit because they play with each other. And I have protection as a club manager. The 24-hour rule kind of makes sure I'm not just losing all my courts and I'm not selling courts. These are courts that are booked kind of, just only one day before. So they're likely not all going to be sold anyway. So that walk-on policy kind of helped us a little bit.
Right, yeah.
I got a lot of our older kids playing more matches with each other for free. It didn't cost them any extra. But then I still had this problem of my 5, 6, and 7, and 8-year-olds. The walk-on pass, a lot of them had it. I mean, they qualified for a walk-on pass. They had a membership and they were in a clinic, but a 7-year-old wasn't calling other 7-year-olds to play. So in a sense, it was kind of worthless. It was a useless pass. They had this little walk-on privilege, but it didn't move the dial. It wasn't getting my kids playing a second time a week. So then I thought, well, how do I fix that? So we put a really cool policy into place a few years ago that said, all right, now here's the new deal with the walk-on pass. If you are a parent and your child has a walk-on pass, you can play with your child on their walk-on pass. So watch this. The parent doesn't pay for the court. They don't pay guest fees. They don't pay membership. They literally get a free pass and they get to play with their child. So that helped us a little bit, because now I saw for the first time some 7, 8, 9-year-olds out there with their parents playing with our equipment on the modified equipment on the red court. And it was great, but it wasn't that many. I still had well over half of the families. These kids were coming one time a week, and I wasn't seeing them.
Yeah, and I can just see where they're, parents got to get the kids in the car, or they've got 2 other kids, and so I'm going to come play with my kid at the club, and then what am I going to do with the 2 other kids?
Sure.
And so it's for some of them, it's probably a little bit inconvenient, because it's like when my wife has to go out, she has to take all the kids because I may be working or something.
So what we figured out, or the way I kind of cracked this code, and now it's working much better at my club, is all these little policies were getting me close. Okay, the walk-on policy helped, but it really only helped the older kids. The play with your parent rule, that helped more of the younger kids. But I still had a good faction, over 50% of my younger kids' families that were like, I still can't go and do the walk-on because I don't play tennis. As a parent, I don't play tennis, so I don't know what to do. I don't want to go out there. I'm going to mess up my child. So I created, that's what we're going to show you here. I'm going to show you something, and you're going to get access to this webpage of videos if you want to just pull it up. So the last piece of this that kind of helped us crack the code.
All right, can I do one thing first? Because I forgot to, I just want to go do one thing. Before we get started, we just want to see who we've got watching. I know some of us are on the national campus site, some of us are on the Zoom site, but we actually created a poll. So this may help us in terms of like what drills we show or whatever. But I'm going to send you this poll, and we're going to give you about 30 seconds to answer the questions. If you're on Zoom, you can actually take this poll. The first question is going to be, how many times a week does a typical 7-year-old play at your club? and then just what best describes you, and then how do you feel about getting parents and kids on the court together? So I'm going to launch that poll right now, and you can see it's going on right there. And we'll give you 30 seconds to answer this poll. And if you can go ahead and answer it, throw in your answers. We can maybe show you the results at the end today.
And this is really only for the folks on Zoom, right?
This is only for the folks on Zoom. So if you're watching it on Zoom right now, if you could go ahead and answer those questions, there we go. And we'll give you about a minute. And we just want to know who's watching and what you think. We want to get to know your opinions. Also, remember, we want you to ask a question in the Q&A at the bottom, or raise your hand, either way, because we want a chance to be able to, A, to test this out. It's a new platform that we're using, number one. And two, we want to engage with you and get to know what you're concerned about, and hopefully help guide you.
I can see some of the poll stuff coming in. It's
Yeah.
revealing already, and kind of what I expected, but
89%.
let's give it another 10 seconds or so.
Yeah,
Looks like most people.
Most people, yeah, it's pretty good. Got a lot of teaching pros. That's great.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm going to end this poll, and we're going to show you the results later. Okay, we'll show you the results at the end. And right now, what we're going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to go to Jorge's page right here. So,
okay, so let's just go ahead and scroll up to the very, very top of that page. And what you're watching here, guys, is you're going to get access to this page. So probably the biggest value we can give you is actually these videos. But I want you to have a peek behind the curtain of what I did at my club and what helped me. So remember, my goal, my problem was to have these kids playing, one time a week and leaving. And those kids, in my assumption, are really at risk for leaving the sport altogether. They're just trying out tennis. And if they don't like it, they're going to be at one of those other sports that they're kind of test driving. Right. So at the very top, you can actually see my page for my family starts a little bit down where it says quality time with your kids. But if you scroll up, that little message there is basically for you coaches. And I just talk about how it's important to get them playing once a week, and not necessarily for more money, because that was the obstacle I was running into. I didn't want to come across and say, hey, your child has to play twice a week, so take another lesson and double what you're paying me. It's a little too salesy. People didn't want that.
Right.
So I wanted to figure out how I can make them play twice a week and how I could do it for free. So this is where we came to. The last piece of this is I had to get those families, even though they had a walk-on and even though they had the ability to play for free, they weren't doing it because they didn't have the knowledge. A parent said, I don't know, about going on the court with my 7-year-old. I don't think I know what the heck to do. So one thing we know for sure, that the younger players or younger parents, you got to realize millennials now are mostly parents. The millennial people are parents now, and they got the 5 and 6 and 7-year-olds. So they have a complete different need and desire for what to do with their kids than other generations did. So I know that a couple of pain points that my parents have is that their kids had too much screen time. They're worried about the kids playing, always on a screen and not getting enough physical activity. And also families are looking very much for a way to get like more family time, quality time with their kids, okay? So I wanted to address those two problems. So our policy here is we have a policy where you can play with your kids, walk on. And this last piece I'm going to show you is how now I can train even the rookiest parents that don't know how to do anything with tennis and how they can actually do it with their kids. But I had to show them. So that's why we created this page. So this little main video that you're seeing here, we don't necessarily have to play it. You'll want to watch it. It's pretty good. And it's
a little
really
intro.
Yeah, it's basically my message to my parents. You can see I'm sitting there with at my club, and I'm telling my parents, listen, I want to help you get quality time with your kids and play extra tennis for free. And I have a little bit of stats in there. So that's really, that video. If you scroll down, you're going to see the first of 3 sections, and you'll see this titled grades K through 1. Now at my club, we do our levels of classes by grades, okay? Most clubs will do it by ages. So the equivalent of this would be ages 5 and 6 typically. And let's just scroll a little bit further because you'll see the next section. Those are 9 videos, by the way. Now is go a little bit higher, Chris. You see that's grades 2 and 3. That's what we call it at my club. And in particular, that would be probably 7 and 8-year-olds at most clubs. Right. And that's all on the red court, obviously, so far with 36-foot court. Now, if you go to the last section here, this is grades 4 and 5. known as 9 and 10-year-olds for the most part. And now I've moved, and all these little videos are now on a 60-foot court. So the parents get to see that in action. So let's scroll up to the top, the very top, and we'll start at the top of this page. I'm going to talk about these.
One thing I like about this, just not to cut you off, but I did. But one thing I like about this is that it's grades. Like if I'm 5 and you're my friend and you're 6,
yeah,
and we're in the same class together at school, we might not be in the same class, at
yeah,
the club. So you hang out with your buddies, and they can be in
sure,
the same class.
So let's talk about that issue, because I think a lot of coaches go, "You do it by grades. Why is that?" It doesn't seem like that's the most common way, but this is exactly why I do it. We had kids in first grade. So at that age, they're friends with whoever they're in grades with, right? So, typically the first graders are all friends with other first graders. So by doing it by the age, I was having some kids get to 7, but their friends are really still in, first grade or second grade, and it was mismatched. So I just decided to do it by grades. The other big reason is we graduate yearly. So our general time to move players into the next level, it's not ongoing. It's not this constant battle like it is at my or other clubs where they say, like, is my kid ready now? Is he ready after this session? Is he ready now? How about now? The default position at my club is you just age out like you grade out. Okay.
Yeah,
now,
makes
as
sense,
a club, we do have some kids that are above average, and we handpick those guys and move them along earlier. But that solves a huge problem. So now, there's 9 videos, right? 9 videos in these sections, and we're going to watch a few of these. I don't want to watch them on this seminar because you're going to have access to this, but it's the big idea. So as I decided, what do I want these 9 little videos to do? I decided to come up with these, and they're the same 9 categories for each of the separate areas. So the very first video you can see here is titled Intro, right? So all I'm going to do in the intro is talk to remember, this is for parents. So I'm talking to the parents. I'm talking to them about characteristics of kids that age, so they need to know about little kids when they're 5 and 6 and grades K and 1. They don't have the greatest attention span. They don't have real good motor skills yet. So I'm showing all this. The other thing I do in that video is I show them how to pick the right size racket, how to size them up properly. And then the last thing is we show them the court. So that's what that video is going to be. And in this particular case, it's all about K1. So if you go to the second one there, athletic skills, this is, by the way, these are my categories. You might pick other ones, but this is how we run a class. So it's just modeled after a lesson template, if you will. At every class that we run for little kids, we're going to have, minus the intro, we're going to have athletic skills. That's basically a warm-up. I always want to have my class have a racket skill, something to do with the rack and how does this thing work, and just let them get better, little ups and flips and stuff. Item 4 there, you can see in the website, is receiving skills. I really want to work on the reception skills.
Right.
5 is sending skills. That's obviously important. Number 6 is a rally builder. I always have in our lessons a rally builder segment, and it's any kind of thing that will help them build a rally. Probably not a rally itself, but just something that will help them build a rally. Number 7 is net and transition. And number 8 is serving and returning. And then number 9 is the fun game. All right, so that's basically my lesson template for all kids. Now,
so let's go ahead and take a look at one of the videos.
Yeah,
Can we
why
take
don't
a
we
look?
do this? I'm going to be real honest. I'm going to go to the second video, athletic skills. And this video is rough, and I'm going to show you why, because we're doing it, and I actually chose to do something probably a little too advanced with this child. It goes a little bit slow, but I want you to see it. I don't over edit. I want the parents to see that as well. I want them to see that, wow, even Coach Jorge was trying to get this little guy. It was tough to get him to. So watch his attention span as I go through 2 little quick athletic skills with him. Let's make it a little bit bigger.
The first thing I want you to measure is whether the player runs properly. Do they alternate arms and legs? So, Braxton, here's what I want you to come my warm up.
Braxton here, by the way, is I think he just turned 6.
It might catch up on the video there, so I'm gonna actually just go ahead and still play it from here, from this point.
Okay.
Make it a little bit bigger. See how we're doing in this video. It was just me was going a little bit fast right there.
Sure.
All right. So
the old awesomeness of internet streaming.
Yeah, so it's going a little bit too fast.
Well, we can keep that cranking up in a minute,
we'll keep that one, but let's look at another one, and I won't
Yeah.
make it so big.
So the other thing that I want you to understand, so in that athletic skills, I was having the little child go around me in a circle. I was holding still, and he had to stay facing forward the whole time. way too advanced. He started walking around. He wasn't looking at the camera the whole time, but it was just a skill. All right. Remember, the whole purpose of these videos is to give my parents an idea of what they could do with their kids so that they'll go out and play with their kids. If a child is playing 2 or 3 times of tennis a week, that's going to be a lot more likely child to stick around and play tennis and pick tennis as their sport compared to something else. So let's just go to let's just pick that one there. We're dealing with sending skills for a 5 and 6-year-old. I'm not sure if the audio needs to be higher on our end or if they can adjust it. So I'm going to talk over this. I'm just for a sending skill, we're pre-rally here. This child is probably not going to be able to rally over the net. And that's a big message I wanted to teach the parents, that it's not typical for a 5-year-old to be able to play tennis over the net. A lot of parents don't know that. They go, well, I send him tennis lessons, he can play a full match.
Yeah, parents just expect that for them to be this.
Yeah, so that's not very common. It might happen in a few cases, but the typical 5 and 6-year-old is not playing over the net that much. So I still need to teach this child that it's a back and forth game, that it's a game of exchanging. So what I'm doing here is I'm using the blue line and we're zooming in and I'm helping him kind of follow through. The blue line is kind of like our line to kind of keep it on. So I'm going to send it back here in a second. You'll see I send it back. And watch his second effort here. I think this second effort, he does quite a bit better.
Yeah, you kept yours on the line there, Jorge.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Pretty good at this. So here he's going to send it. And remember, all the audio, when I'm talking here, I'm talking to parents, basically. So watch him here. So look at how much more accurate that was than just a couple. So you can kind of pause that video.
Yeah, that was really good.
And then kind of shrink that page back up. So on each area, let's go to where it says fun games. That's the area that I really want the parents to spend most of their time on. So right there, I'm just basically talking to the parents and look, all these other areas that we do, these little, lesson template, if you will, that's fun. You should know what it is, do a little bit with it, but then I want over half the time to be these kinds of games here. This is a game I'm demonstrating called Goal Shooter. And he's going to move the ball from the line into the circle. Then he's going to send it. I think this first one, he doesn't make it. All right, so he goes and gets another ball. There he drops his racket. No big deal. He's 5 years old. So I'm having to help him. Okay, I start a ball there, and I want him to push that ball forward, controlling it. So he's working on his racket dexterity, stops it. And now he's going to get sideways. And he's going to shoot it through the hoop. And man, look at that.
Look at that. Beautiful.
So we can pause that.
All right, so let me ask you a question right here. So, you're working on all these skills with these kids, and is there anything that, we talk about grips, or, might talk about stance, or you might even talk maybe a little bit about swing path or anything. Do you emphasize that at all, or do you talk to the parents about it at all to make sure they're doing that, or how do you do that?
No, there's a couple ways we do that. In this particular web page, I don't do a lot of that. One of the concerns, I think, I don't have this as a major concern. I think some coaches might have that. That's why it's a poll question. Is like do we want the parents trying to technically coach the kids a lot? And I think that could be a little bit tougher. So I don't really do that. But what we do to address that is whenever this class is going on, like his actual class with the coach, we always invite the parents down to the court. And we always have them right next to us where there's bleachers there. And I want them kind of listening in and listening to what we do. And I do what's called a parents lab. So when I do a drill or a point that I'm trying to make, as soon as I explain it to the kids, I'll walk over to the bleachers and say, parents, the reason we're doing this, and I just give them a 10-second debrief. And every single time those parents go, oh yeah, okay. And they get it. They love it. Yeah. So I'm really running the class and simultaneously teaching the parents what the heck I'm doing so that they know there's purpose to it. So let's scroll a little bit lower. You'll see there's, we got a chat question. What?
Well, let's just say Jim just says, Fellow says, great stuff, Jorge. Are parents on board with these skills? I asked because we've seen videos of Agassi hitting across the net when he was 3. I wonder if parents understand the need for these building block skills.
Yeah, great question. So here's what I'm finding at my club. I'm assuming it's probably a little bit different everywhere you go. But for sure, my parents are into this kind of stuff. I don't have, at least at my club, that many super intense parents. Most parents walking into my club with kids this age, they're doing that sports buffet. They just want their kid to test tennis and see if they like it. And if they do, maybe the parent will stick them in tennis. My job is to try to win that battle against all the other sports that they're trying out. I want them to like the coach. I want them to like the facility. And I want them to say, when the parent says, well, you know, you tried everything, what do you want to do? I want to say, I want to go back and do tennis. Okay, that's what I'm happening. If I do have a tougher parent that wants to talk with that, I can usually handle them one-on-one. My favorite way of doing that is getting, if you just Google best ever 10 and under point on YouTube, you'll see this amazing point, and there's all kinds of them.
Yeah.
And you can show these little 7 and 8-year-olds playing what appears to be like a pro level point. I mean, they're topspin and recovery and defense, overheads, closing to the net. And I go, if your child is doing this already, then we can talk about hitting on a bigger court with a different ball. But their kids are usually just completely miles away from that. So that's kind of a good point. I think that's important. So let's go down to grades 2 and 3. Same 9 categories. What's happening here is the child is a little bit older and their ability to do things is through the roof compared to the 5 and 6-year-old. And that's the number one thing I wanted to convey to the parents. I don't want parents out there with 5 and 6-year-olds, which we know are limited in what they can do, and then becoming frustrated. So that's why those videos are separate. I don't just do one video and have it apply to 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10-year-olds. I broke it into the 3 areas. So in this particular game, let's go ahead and let's just open up the receiving skill.
All right.
So the receiving skill, this is just one of the 9 areas. And I'm just showing parents that it's something they can do. I love the use of a cone. This isn't unique to me, but having a cone makes the young player have to create the space. You know, I'm explaining here in this video that it's tough for tennis because you're tracking. By the way, look at the little girl in the back. She's she's being a 7-year-old. She's distracted because I'm talking to the camera. So there's a flight from the ball to the ground on my side, and then there's a second flight from the ground to me. And that is more difficult. So what I've done here, and by the way, these build, when I was doing the reception skill with a 5 and 6-year-old, I was basically just pushing it right to them.
Right.
But now with this player, they can go left and right much quicker. So you see, I challenge her quite a bit. And here I'm just explaining to the parent about the use of the cone. The cone just ensures that they're going to have to back up because the ball has to be falling. And that's the spacing they'll need eventually to hit a proper tennis shot. I don't want the ball at their foot all the time. So watch me move her left and right here. It's not real easy, right? I'm making her hustle over there. And you can pretty much stop that one, Chris. Again, the whole point of this live presentation is not to let you watch these videos now, but I do want you to know you're going to have access to them. By the way, you can. That's courtesy of USTA. They were going to help. They're the ones that said, "Hey, can you do this with us? I want to help coaches and want to help parents get kids playing." So we can scroll down a little bit further.
And remember, if you do have a question, hit the Q&A button right there, and we can answer that question live. Or hit the raise your hand, and we'd love to answer that question live and hear your question audibly.
All right, so this is the grades 4 and 5. And what I did here, Chris, is I basically went to the 60-foot court. I kept all the same categories: athletic skills, racket skills, receiving skills. Now we have a 9 or 10-year-old player. Again, they can do more physically. They can concentrate better. There's all these things that they can do that the younger players couldn't. I'm not even going to show you any videos here. If you scroll down a little bit further, I think the page basically ends there. So that page is going to come to you, and Chris will send you a link where you can get this completely free. And I know the way some clubs are going to use it is just kind of internally. I already shared this with a few friends who are like, man, I'm going to show this to my parents as is. Other clubs are going to say, well, I don't want them to see you necessarily, Jorge. So we're going to redo all these videos in-house, but I like the idea. Thanks for the idea. Other people will do anything in between, they can, but it's there. You can use it in any way you want. If you want to just literally send it to your parents and say, hey, this guy knows what he's talking about, follow this and start playing. I think that would be great. Now, at this point, we'll talk about the website, but let's go back and look at that poll because I'm interested in showing people that poll that you had a second ago.
Now, and before we even go to that poll, one thing what Jorge just said there, he's going to give you all these videos, but one thing I'm going to show you in my presentation on Friday at the USTA conference is going to be how you can actually get these videos out to the parents automatically, to where you might be dripping them out one at a time. So instead of just blasting them with all of these skills at once, being able to communicate with them. And we'll show you how to automate that to where you look like a hero and the parents will love you for it. But we're going to go to that poll right now, and we're going to share the results here. There we go. So 89% didn't have, we had said that.
Okay.
How many times per week does a typical 7-year-old play at your club? 89% was number one, but
Right.
more than 3 times a week, we had one in there.
We had one in there. That's probably a really committed child and probably already playing at a pretty high level. Here's the thing. This just proves the point that with basically 9 out of 10 players at your clubs are playing 1 time a week. This is a problem. This is a problem that we got to overcome. I'm just showing you what's worked at my club in hopes that it might work for you. The second one was we wanted to know who's on this call. So what describes you best? We have 8 teaching professionals and then 1 other. I don't know what other, maybe they're alien or something. I wanted to ask question number 3 here because I get different feedback depending on the coaches, but the question was, how do you feel about getting parents on the court together? So as I talk to coaches face-to-face about this, most of them are like, wow, that's a genius idea. I need to get my players playing more than once a week, and this is a cool way that you're doing it. Other coaches, when I tell them how I'm doing it, that I'm doing it with parents, they just lose their mind. Like, are you crazy? Why would you ever have parents go on the court with their kids? Well, this is why I do it. I'm at Hope College. I got your everyday kid coming in. I don't run the Nick Bollettieri Tennis Academy or any other famous academy. I got everyday kids coming in and everyday parents. I don't have an influx of crazy parents that are trying to get their kids to go pro. So at least until now, I don't really have that concern. It says here that most of you love it. So probably you're all like me. There was 1 vote that says, I'm a little concerned. I would just say this is a good idea. This is what my challenge is. If I was consulting someone at a club, I'd say, look at your club and ask yourself, do you have this problem with your 10 and under groups? Are they playing enough? And most clubs, 8 out of 9 or 9 out of 10 said no, they're not playing. So then step 2, my recommendation is, okay, what can you do policy-wise? What's your club's philosophy? What are you going to do? If your only option is to say, well, we want them to play a second time, but we're going to charge them for it, you're gonna probably lose that kid,
Right.
Especially if he's a sports buffet kid trying everything else. It's 1 fee for a couple of days a week, but when I go to that tennis club, they get me for 2 fees. Or you might even consider changing your program where, and I've done this, where you have 1 day that's a built-in play day, practice day, and then the play day, and it's just all 1 fee. That's a paradigm shift for a lot of clubs. They're like, wow, I don't know if I could do that. But every other sport does this, by the way. I think we got to stand up to that.
Right.
Even if you're not into sports and you're into piano, how many people take piano lessons and then do piano 45 minutes a week and that's it?
Yeah, that's the one analogy we used in the email was, now that you say that analogy, the first thing I actually had my parents sign a contract because can I tell this story real quick?
Sure.
And I said, what's the first thing your dad or your mom would say to you when they came home from work if you were taking piano? And they said, did you practice your piano? And I said, well, did you know that you're paying 3 times more for tennis lessons? So how many times do you say when you come home from work, did you practice your tennis? But the answer from them was interesting because they said, well, we don't have a tennis court at home. And as you watch these drills right here, you see you really don't need a tennis court at home. You just have to go to Home Depot, grab some caution tape, you got your foam ball, your rackets, and you're good to go. And the other thing I really like about the parent, I'm glad everybody said they like parents playing with kids, or most of them anyway, is that you're probably gonna get the parents out there hitting balls. I mean, we have classes out here at the campus, and I'm sure a lot of you do at your clubs too, where parents and children play together. So you can kind of say, hey, here's some of the drills we want you to do at home. Sure. But parents want to spend time with their kids, and if their kid wants to play tennis, the parents are going to want to play, and then you might get a couple extra lesson takers like that as well.
Actually, that's happened. The entry point for a new adult beginner has been this playing with their kid. Next thing you know, they're like, well, I see some people, like, I'd like to play a little bit more. And you say, well, try a cardio tennis class because it's all levels. You don't have to be any particular skill level. We can put you all together. And next thing you know, they try cardio. We actually have that going on literally right now. There's a family at our club that started with a child, and then the mom started playing, then the dad played, then they started taking private lessons, and now they have they literally self-formed with 3 other couples, a cardio private lesson group. and my wife Barney teaches it. So it's a great example of, being an entry point. So I know we're a little over time, and I'm sure there's some questions here.
Well, we're going till 8 o'clock. Yeah, we got. But I want to answer one.
Right.
Yeah, I want to answer one question here. And if you go to the Q&A, you'll see. If you just click on that, you'll see that Chuck Sancelli asked a question, and so we're going to answer that now. The question is the play day supervised by the pro or instructor? So and it says, is it also a lesson or more play?
So this isn't really a play day. Now we run play days at my club. So here's what happens at my club. You have the actual class itself, the lesson, the clinic, whatever you call it. This is where kids come and there's an instructor and it's a 10 and under group lesson. Then we do have play days, a separate event where players come and they're not getting instruction so much as they're getting a chance to play. And for those, depending on the age, we definitely will have a helper. I usually have at least a pro or two. And if it's a larger group, I get some high school kids that need some service hours and I get them out there helping as well. What I'm talking about here is a totally different venue. It's a parent and a child playing together. Because I'm trying to do a couple things. I'm assuming that if I can make it easy for them, make it cheap, that they'll take advantage of it. They're spending time with their families, they're getting less screen time, and the parents are getting to do something with one or maybe even more than one kid. Sometimes it's a couple of kids. So when that happens, they're out there on their own. I'm not really pushing a group lesson. I haven't had a parent say, hey, we really like this, but can we hire a pro to be out here and do a private lesson? I guess that could happen. That hasn't at my club yet. And this is pretty new at my club. I mean, we just rolled this out and I'm just starting to see new families out there playing with their kids for the first time. And that, to me, is a huge success. For years, I've been trying to figure out this dilemma. How can I get my typical 7-year-old, who I know is just dabbling in tennis to see if she likes it, how can I get that gal hooked or a boy hooked? And playing with their parent is, in my opinion, a huge way to do it because the parent likes it and the child likes it. And really, that's the way most sports start. When I signed up my daughter for T-ball, I remember T-ball in particular because we got a sheet of paper on a Saturday when we signed up. And on that sheet of paper said the next practice is on Tuesday and the next game was the following Saturday. And my daughter didn't even own a baseball or a glove or a bat or a helmet. So guess what I did later on that Saturday? I went out and I bought her all that stuff and I started playing catch with her in the front yard and I was the initial coach. I'm not a baseball coach. I can throw a baseball for sure, but I was the vehicle that got her kick-started, and then she had a chance to give baseball a shot to see if she likes it. So that's what we want to do. I'm not too worried about parents being with kids, particularly if they watch those videos. They're going to hear a lot of what I'm coaching in the video is about chilling out, having fun. It's not a lesson per se. It's family playtime is what I call it.
All right. So, and just on top of that, one thing in my sports academy, I call it a sports academy in the summer because I did tennis and an alternate sport every day for 8 days, Monday through Thursday. And when I ran this as a tennis academy before that, the big key for me was a lot of times when you have a lot of young kids coming out, the pros that bring out the rack of rackets and they got the balls. And so the kids, they come running out and they grab a racket because they don't have one. Then you're encouraging them to play tennis and then they go home and they don't have a racket. So one of the keys that we did was we made sure every kid that came into our program, in our 10 or under program, it included a racket. So they could go home and practice. They got a foam ball. So now they can go do what they just did. Otherwise, they're going to have to wait till the next week. And it's kind of like that piano lesson, right?
That's brilliant.
All right. So we got a question from Bob here. It says, great webinar, half hours or hours for the young kids with their parent.
Great question. So that was discovered, that's actually covered in the intro video for each of the sections, but I can tell you real quickly. For the 5 and 6-year-olds, I tell them that it's 30 minutes to 45 minutes. That's about the attention span that they can have. If they try to stretch that out a little bit more, it's going to be tough. So that's what I would do for 5 and 6-year-olds, which we refer to as grades K1. For grades 2, 3, which is basically 7 and 8-year-olds, we say it can go 45 minutes to an hour. That's about how our classes are, and that's about how much time they can spend with their parents. And then for the grades 4 and 5, we recommend the class that I would run for the player is an hour and a half, but I recommend only an hour when they go with the parents.
Right.
And really, parents are booking these really for the young parents are booking them for the 5 and 6-year-olds for either half-hour slots or an hour. They just use it 45 minutes. Everybody else is booking an hour.
All right. So Jim asked, and don't be afraid to raise your hand, you guys. I'd love to hear somebody ask a question live just to see if that that works on this live stream. But Jim asks, how long do the youngsters and parents last on the court? My experience has been that the kids get distracted or tired in about 10 minutes.
Yeah, it can happen for sure, especially the 5 and 6-year-olds. They might last 20 minutes max.
Yeah.
So here's what I like to do. When it comes to young players and the videos that obviously we didn't watch all the videos on the website, but I do address this for the parents. With the young kids, it's important that they play many little games. So if I have let's say a 6-year-old and I got a half-hour lesson I want to occupy, I'm going to play with my child for 30 minutes. I'm not going to spend 5 minutes on any particular thing. Maybe at the end, the fun games can be. So when we do that little warm-up thing, they're going to go 30 seconds to a minute, next project, 30 seconds to a minute, next project. The thing that we know about young players is that their attention span isn't that long. It's typical, it's not their fault. So they don't mind doing things over and over, the same thing over and over and over. They just can't do any one thing for very long. So for example, if I have a child and I have them do the same warm-up every single week, they're fine with that. If it's a fun warm-up and they're jumping and acting like a frog or whatever, they don't mind doing that.
Yeah, they love repeating.
They'll do that every single week. Hey, we're going to do the frog jump again, and they love it. But if I did that frog game for 5 minutes in a row, I lose them after about a minute. So the key with the very youngest and really all 10 and under players, but particularly the 5 and 6, is make sure that you're rotating the activities quickly. And you can actually come back to one. I can do the frog game and then move on to 6 more things and say, hey, let's try that frog game again, and they'll be ready to try it for another minute or so.
Right, and another suggestion I might have is we actually ran a class. It was run by a couple of pros at our club, a husband and wife team, and it was called Tennis First. And they actually it's for like 2 and 3-year-olds, and like 2 and 3-year-olds. And actually, there was a kid out there in a diaper. But the point was, they just set up a bunch of stations and let the kids just do whatever they wanted to do, so they could explore. There was a ladder here, there was a hula hoop over here, there was a little hopscotch area over here, there were balls on cones, and they could just go over with their parent, obviously on court. And they could go and just explore and do whatever. So the kid if the kid got bored with the activity after 10 seconds, they just walked over here and did this. And the pro's job were just to make sure everything was kind of in place, and the parent and the child just kind of explored that. So, one suggestion is, like at home, that may be tough to do because you're on the driveway and you've got your little net set up, but you could come up with a few ideas, like 3 stations, and go from station to station. And that might just keep them interested a little bit more.
Yeah, perfect idea.
So I hope that answers. And now we have another question here. All right, we're going to keep going here. What is your student instructor ratio in your classes for the various age groups?
Yeah, so really for all our 10 and under programs, well, let me rephrase that. For all our red court programs, so that's really, 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-olds, that's the red court. Our max is 1 pro for 4 players. If I get there and I have like a really big class and don't have enough pros, I will likely get I work at a college, I get a college assistant or a high school assistant. And that seems to go great. I can show everybody what we're going to do, and then my high school kid can take his 3 players over there. So I know that varies quite a bit. Some people have more than that. My personal preference is 4 to 1 maximum. When it comes to 9 and 10-year-olds, we go 5 or 6 to 1 if the class is full, because they can do more, and the different types of drilling and the space that we have on the court all works fine for that.
I know. I'm going to just go to Chuck's question. I just like his question. It says, I love these ideas. However, how would you reply to some pros who feel the parents may say, why do I need to pay you if I have these videos and I'm playing with my child? That's why I send my child to lessons. Well, the point is there for me is the lessons are great. The piano lesson is great. The teacher is fantastic. But if you want to improve, obviously you've got to practice outside of those lessons. Yeah. The other thing is I've got a young tennis player. He's 14 now. But when he was 7 and 8 years old, there's one thing I totally realized, that it's a lot easier to be the coach than it is to be the dad. The dad out there says, well, you hit that forehand yesterday. Why can't you hit it today? And a coach understands development. And that's why I'm working with a coach. And I'm not saying all dads are like that, but even me, I found myself kind of struggling with the fact that, I'm a tennis pro, I'm a teaching pro, and I can see myself getting frustrated because my son was just hitting that ball that way yesterday. So, and it's important for him to have that other person he can look up to work with him.
Yeah, I think that's great. And we're answering Chuck's
We're answering Chuck's right now.
Yeah. So obviously, Chuck, I'm not only a pro at the club. I'm the manager of the club, so I don't want to set up any policies that are going to, make us lose money. So the way we get protection, the question was, why would a parent pay or keep his kid in class if he's going to have these videos they can play for free? Because the walk-on pass that I go back to, it has rules, and you only get a walk-on if you're a junior member and you're enrolled in a clinic. So the second they think they get it smart and say, I'm going to drop out of the clinic, well, now you don't have your junior walk-on pass. That means the parent can't play. The whole thing goes down the drain.
Right.
So it's all set up as part of the policy, which is your child has to be a member and your child has to be enrolled into a clinic. Now, if you're enrolled in one session that goes for 3 months, then you have the privilege for 3 months. And then the next session you're not in, now you don't have a walk-on pass. So you can't take advantage of this program. So that's how we protect ourselves.
And Chuck seems to agree with that. He must have a youngster he plays with or so, but it can definitely be a frustrating experience. Now we're going to answer one more here from Jim. Jim's question makes me think that a video series on mental skills should be developed for various grade levels, same as Jorge did. I love to work on this, and your discussion gives me impetus to this idea.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. So Jim's asking about the idea of having a mental toughness course for the younger players, right? So I think that's a kind of cool idea. It would be quite a bit different, I think. I'm going to be teaching mental skills to a 14, 15-year-old high performance kids that are quite different than I would with a 5 and 6-year-old. But I think that's kind of a cool idea. I hadn't thought about that before, but I would almost think the things that you have to, when it comes to 5 and 6-year-olds, I'm not sure it would work, because a 5 and 6-year-old, I'm not sure that they're the age of, where they can reason and all this stuff is kind of more difficult. We all know that when it comes to junior tennis, it's difficult to get them to practice mental skills anyway. I was talking with Chris earlier. There's really 4 pillars of training in tennis, and they're not unique to me. They're just what they are. You're either training technical things, that's a huge area. You got mental, that's a huge area. You got movement, and then you got strategy. So the pros kind of take the technical, which is where everybody's stuck on, and then you definitely need to start with the technical for sure when you're with a new player. But they'll stay here forever, ignoring mental toughness, strategy, and movement.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas the pros are pretty much past this, and they spend 99% of their time on the mental, the strategy, and the movement, and very little bit of their time on the technical. So I think that would be kind of a cool thing to
and just on top of that too, like at age 10 in long-term athletic development, that window starts to shut on agility, balance, and coordination skills. And so, along with the technical, I think that even the physical, just agility, balance, and coordination is key. And in doing these things with your parents at home, that will help that. Now, Jim also says, I think kids start to learn about failure and success in the early grades. These foundations carry over to what is learned. I was talking a little bit about this when I had my young child out there playing, and I remember I was actually teaching at Wild Dune. I don't know if this is a direct answer to the question, but I would have them do skills like the ball in your racket and you flip it over and you show them how cool it is, and then you say to them, okay, if anybody can do this, I'll buy you a Dove bar. And then that night, all the parents, they came the next day and said my kid was up till 2 o'clock, and I was out like $32 because they all got it. But I think for young kids, just having fun like that, giving them challenges like that. I think for young kids also, we talked about performance goals and outcome goals. When you're out there as a dad, you're thinking about winning and winning and winning. And a coach is thinking about, 7 years from now, dad is thinking about the moment right now and thinking about performance. And, you might get them, even though you want to put them in competitive situations, so to see if they can handle it, give them performance goals. Like, hey, I want to see if you can try to hit the ball more than 3 feet over the net. Or if they're a little bit more advanced, hit with more top spin, and get them thinking about those things, not so much about the win and the loss.
Yeah. So also in regards to that, the younger players and learning failure, for sure, a 4 and 5-year-old handles failure way different than a 7 and 8-year-old, and as well as a 9 and 10-year-old. So that's part of the intro video. In the introduction video for each of those levels, I talk about what kids can do. 5 and 6-year-olds understanding effort and the outcome, they don't connect those two. They, if you have a 5-year-old try something and they don't make they fail at it, right, they'll often think it's not fair. That's the mantra of every 5-year-old. It's not fair because they tried hard and they don't understand that. Hey, sometimes you try hard and you don't get it. 7 to 8-year-olds can handle that concept better. 9 and 10-year-olds get it totally. Yeah, just because I tried hard, it's not, and I didn't win, it's not necessarily unfair. So I address that in the main intro because I want the parents to go in there. So, Chris, I think we're
getting close. Yeah.
Here's my big question, because I'm sure people are wondering. And
Yeah.
so I created these videos. I edited the videos. I put them on a page. They're really intended to help the rationale was I had a pain point. As a club pro and a club manager, I wanted my kids to play more often, my 5, 6, 7, 8-year-olds, because I saw them dabbling in tennis, and too many of them were leaving because they picked another sport. So this is my attempt to kind of fix the leaky bucket. But these videos, once I create them, they're helping me, and there's no reason why they can't help you. So how would specifically, are you going to send them an email? How will they have the ability to get access to that website I was showing them and use it in whatever way they want?
Well, if you sign up for the live event that we're doing tonight, and there were like close to 100 of you, which is fantastic, I'm just going to send you the link to that page in an email immediately following this live event.
Okay, cool.
So you will get that. Now, one thing I also want to talk about, we're going to try to live stream. I'm doing a presentation on Friday at 9:30 at the USPTA conference, and I'm going to be talking about, we talk about the pain point about not practicing out of class or playing in between the lessons. And if you looked at my emails, one of the other pain points for teaching pros, if you saw that schedule of mine, was time. And these things are great. And this is what we're going to show you is how you can do this and create that link between the parent and showing the kid. The phrase you used today was,
the kids, especially kids, parents, but mostly kids, they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right. So if you send them this page just one time, they're going to really appreciate it. They're going to think it's great. But then that's the only contact they're going to have with you, just that one time. And so what I'm going to show you is how you can create an automated series of emails where you only have to do the work once, and you're going to definitely cash in over and over and over. Because each week you're going to have contact with these parents via email. And then also, so that takes away some of that time. The other things we're going to talk about are just how you can make sure your kids, who are maybe the ones that are playing tournaments, are a little bit more accountable and playing out of class. You're going to give them, talk a little bit about what we talked about in the lesson, what I want you to do this week. Instead of writing it down in a book, I'm going to show you how I can do that very easily. And I'm going to also show you ways that you can promote yourself and your programs very easily with a very little time. And that's one thing. You only have this little window in your schedule every week for an hour and a half to get the TDM draws done and the flyer done. And
answering emails.
And like I said in the email, when you come out at 8 o'clock and you see that red light on your phone, you just hope it's not the woman or the guy that you're on the phone with for an hour and a half. So we're going to show you ways that you can alleviate that and make your job as a teaching pro much easier. So Jorge, I just want to say thanks for coming here once again to the national campus. We hope that gave you a little bit of insight. Remember to check your email right after this webinar.
I have a question, Coach Chris.
Yeah, sure.
Coach Mick, would it be possible for them to do a chat and just, if you would let us know most helpful thing that you heard in this thing, it would help us get better. So what, if anything, hopefully something, was your biggest takeaway that helped you the most, or what your action plan is? And I'm going to tell you one thing that I'm going to do at my club, the way I'm going to roll this out is I'm going to probably have a parents meeting, a face-to-face parents meeting. I'm going to announce big new benefit coming. I want you guys to come, so that I'll unveil it there. I might even videotape that presentation or that thing. And then I'm going to give people access to the website, and that's great. But the problem is there are people that are going to get access it once and maybe forget about it. So to what you're saying is I'm pretty good at this automation stuff. I'm going to set up an automation so that once a week for maybe 3-4 months, I'm going to remind them. So they'll get access to a web page, just like Coach Mick here is a parent at my club, and he doesn't come to the meeting, but he gets access to this page, and he goes on it, maybe watches it for a little bit. He's going to forget about that. So I don't want to remember to have to email him every Monday, but I'll set up something that he's going to show you how. For the next 10 Mondays, I'm going to send out another video. Hey guys, this is a video that we featured the receiving skills for a 9 and 10-year-old on the Orange Court. This is part of that webpage that I have for you. So go ahead and click it here and they can check it out. And then they get constant reminders. And I'm going to get credit, like you said, for like, man, Coach Jorge is constantly sending me this cool free stuff. But really all I did was I set up one automation one time. And that's the powerful part of how you can, really leverage yourself, because you're all probably quite busy and don't have a lot of extra
Right.
time.
And even when you're changing from class to class, if you're in red ball, you're going to orange ball, you're going to green ball, based upon your actions in those emails, you can automate that as well, to where you're just going to have to do it once, and you're going to see how you're going to spend a lot of time communicating with the parents and the kids. And that's the pro. Like if I had to pick between, let's say a D1 player was really good, and he's out there at the club. It's very inspiring to want to hit with a guy like that. But the guy that's communicating with the parents and communicating with you, let's say you're the parent, and telling you, hey, here's a great drill you can do this week. Here's a great drill you can do this week. Hey, your kid did a great job today. Here, and look he's keeping track of what we're working on. Those are the kind of things that we're going to show you. And that's the kind of guy that, as a parent, I want my son or daughter to be involved in, because once again, he's showing that he cares. It's not just like that typical dentist or doctor's appointment where it's see you next time. But speaking of see you next time, we just want to say,
All right, guys, thank you for checking in.
Thanks a lot for joining us, and we look forward to doing these more often.
Yeah, thanks to USTA for allowing all this to happen for you guys for free.
All right, have a great night, everybody.